Hi everyone, thank you for joining today. Welcome to one of our webinars where we do these once a quarter, sometimes a bit more frequently than that, depending on what there is to cover. Today we're going to be covering the topic of AI and digital PR. So obviously you have to be living under a rock to not know that AI is a bit of a thing at the moment. But we're going to talk specifically today about how to get mentioned in AI search results and how to get your brand mentioned in AI search results. So I assume everyone can hear me. Thumbs up, anyone who's on camera. Great, thank you for the thumbs up. All right, let's go. We've got Emma here with me today and myself, Alex. Okay, Ethan, do you mind making sure we've got everyone on mute? Is that me? That noise. There we go. Right. Okay, so today's agenda, very quickly about us. We won't spend time on that. You're not here to talk, here to listen to us today. I can still hear something in the background. I don't know what that is. Ethan, you check for mutes, please. That one is. Let's mute that one. Okay, right. So about us, we'll talk about the definition of digital PR, I should say, actually, and AI, just so we're all clear about what we're talking about. We're going to cover what AI is doing to search. We'll talk about some specific research that we did with SimilarWeb on this and then on what we were able to uncover. Specifically, we'll talk about car insurance, but of course it applies to all topics really, but we'll cover financial services today. Then we're going to show the impact of digital PR and how that seems to be affecting AI search, how to apply those to your brand, and then a little bit about measuring your success comes in there as well. Okay. Very quickly, Balance is a financial services specialist agency. We exclusively work with financial services, which has all the complexities that those of you who work in FS will know, which is normally limited resource, high focus on returns, and of course the regulation. So we've been very lucky to have won a number of awards recently, including being, and we're now a 2025 Search Awards finalist. So, but enough about us. These are a number of the brands that we work with and we're lucky to have as clients. And these are the things we do, SEO, digital PR, and so on. Okay, some definitions before we start. What's AI search? Okay, so it sounds obvious, all right? But let's just to be very clear. AI itself has been in search, of course, for a very long time, right? Algorithms and all of those things, machine learning has been used in search for a very long time. So we're not talking about that. What we're talking about here are those generative AIs that have become so popular in the last few years, you know, or Gen AI, LLMs, wherever you want to call them, okay? So obviously Chat GPT being the biggest one. Perplexity, my personal favorite, is obviously one of the other big ones and definitely going after Google's search there. But then you've got weirder ones like Grok and so on. So what we're referring to is anything that generates results from search queries using generative AI. Obviously the biggest one and probably the one, certainly the one with the most exposure is Google's AI overviews. So obviously they get a lot more exposure as well. So it's very important. The things we talk about today not only factor into the Chat GPTs of this world, but of course AI overviews as well. Right. There's a term at the moment. It's not really settled yet. A lot of people are calling it AIO or GEO, generative optimization. There's a few things, but I keep saying EIEIO. So it sounds like old MacDonald had a farm. But I'm sure it'll settle. I think AIO seems to be one of the main terms. Over to Emma.
Cool, and then we'll jump into what is digital PR. So you guys might have come across it before, and you also might think that it's very similar to sort of traditional PR. But basically what it is creating stories and jumping on certain trends with the KPI to generate backlinks and online mentions from external sites. What this does is obviously help with Google rankings, more links that you can get from external websites such as BBC, Financial Times, etc. The more Google's going to trust your own site. And we'll talk about brand mentions and backlinks obviously a little bit later on. But yeah, everyone wants to be first when it comes to sort of getting, you know, on the Google rankings. If you were to search car insurance, you want to be the first key player. And links help with that. So digital PR extends beyond traditional PR just by leveraging online channels with intent. Rather than anything sort of digital being a secondary benefit. So it's very crucial for visibility and authority, and Google recognizes this too. And we'll talk about the different types of PR. So I just touched on then traditional versus digital. So I mentioned that the KPIs and outcomes for digital PR and traditional PR are slightly different, but this diagram shows exactly where the crossover is and what digital PR does that is a little bit different to traditional agencies and traditional PR. And this isn't any hate on traditional agencies. I come from traditional PR, so I know sort of all the benefits that it can give, but I just wanted to show the sort of differences here in terms of what digital PR does. So you can see here on the left, we put competitor analysis in, and these are done just to ensure that we're going after the right places for coverage and getting the right links and the right mentions from key websites that are actually going to really benefit your own site. So we'll talk about the types of sites that those are in a little bit, but yeah, this is really crucial in terms of helping your sites grow. So rather than sending something out en masse, just really aiming for the key players that are really going to help you rank a little bit better. But yeah, everything digitally can obviously be measured in real time, as opposed to sort of going by circulations and sort of average views and things like that. So you can use things like Google Analytics, or you can look at sort of traffic numbers on sort of SEO softwares, just looking at how many people actually come through to your website from pieces of coverage that you're getting. And then everything in the middle there is the stuff that is typically crossed over. But yeah, it's not uncommon at all for us to sort of work with traditional agencies. That some people love having both of them because they do work hand in hand. So it's just making sure that everything's working as effective as possible.
Okay, so the impact of AI. As I said, we all know that's a big deal, but what actually are some of the real numbers of what's happening? So 60% of Google searches ended without a click in 2024. Now we could cover zero-click search as a whole separate topic, so we're not going to focus on much today, but of course a big part of that is what's happening with how Google is organizing its results. Love it or hate it. Hello, Sharon. Love it or hate it, it is the way the search is going. And a lot of people are getting enough of their information from overviews and snippets. Obviously, snippets have been around for a good amount of time. AI overviews coming in last year. After an initial bumpy period, it was telling everyone to eat rocks and so on. It's settled down. So, the search is rapidly changing. And Gartner predicts a 25% decline in traditional search activity by 2026. 25%, that's massive. Now, it's traditional search. That doesn't necessarily mean a reduction in people going to Google, although traffic to Google does seem to be flatlining. And actually in the UK, I saw some research just this morning that in the UK it actually seems to be declining, more noticeably than Europe and the US, but it is certainly changing things. But that's quite a big shift for those of us. And I saw in the audience there, funny name. I saw in the attendees, Anders, we work together and go compare. Search was everything. So when you're in businesses like that and search is changing, that can have major business effect if you're not ready for it. But let's be realistic here, okay? 1% of searches are going to be non-Google AI in 2025. That's the prediction. So that's only 1% of searches. And that's the most recent research I've read. So that's like DuckDuckGo. We've all heard of DuckDuckGo. I think the big difference is DuckDuckGo has been about that size forever, right? And it's a lot less than Bing. But again, Bing has been 8 to 10%, depending on who you speak to, particularly not Bing. Bing has only been 10%, but it's been 10% for a very long time. AI is only going up. So that's 40 million search-like prompts a day and growing. So still big numbers there. This is just a quick look at the traffic from SEMrush. We ran it yesterday, a couple of days ago. So don't read too much into that dip in organic traffic. The part of that is because it wasn't a complete month, so it's a bad chart on my part. But it is going like that. It's a bit of a funny one at the moment, but it's certainly going up and to the left most of the time. What is quite interesting, I won't dwell on it, but paid traffic into ChatGPT. Sorry, this is for ChatGPT. Paid traffic into ChatGPT is growing as well. So obviously they're trying to fight the other LLMs and trying to keep hold of their market share. So that's all well and good. That's stuff we kind of know. Hopefully, if you didn't know, you do now. So what's the thing we did? Well, we noticed this was happening last year. Where we were noticing it quite impactful, we're going, well, if you just do SEO, you should be fine, right? And that's what we do here, amongst other things. And so, well, surely if we're just doing SEO, then we should be more or less be right. But what we were noticing, and what I was noticing particularly whenever there's a new AI tool, can't help who I am, right? I'll go, and I can't help it, but I'll go, where should I get my car insurance? Yeah, to see what the results come back. Is it going to be one of our clients? Is it going to be one of my previous employers? You know, who comes up? And what I was noticing is the winners in that search were quite different sometimes from what you would get in Google. And Google has been in a certain status quo for a lot of these brands for years and years and years. And it's very hard to change that status quo, as all of the price comparison websites will testify to. So I find it fascinating that we were getting quite different outputs from ChatGPT and Perplexity and the others. So we were already working with SimilarWeb on a partnership and other things. So we said, can you get more data on this? So they ran thousands of queries at scale, like more than we could ever do. And they took more complex queries. So whereas you'll get a lot of, people use ChatGPT very differently to how they use Google. In Google, it's almost like we're barking at, right? Car insurance, car insurance renewal or whatever. I mean, it's the head terms, as it were, are short, very instructional kind of queries, but they're not, that's not how people use ChatGPT. I mean, it was in the news only like last week or the week before that people are burning through thousands of gallons of water a minute because they're saying please and thank you to the AI, because we're all a little bit worried they're going to take over at some point. But that shows how much we're using it differently. And therefore, the sort of long tail queries are coming back in and being used. More complex queries are being used. So optimizing to that is going to be very important. That's maybe slightly less so in AI overviews, but we might see that change as well in Google. So we ran a bunch of queries that were a bit more complicated. So what car insurance is best for new drivers, car insurance, residents in London, things that people would ask an AI differently than how they would ask Google, just to see what the results were coming up, as well as the standard head terms on top. They ran, so SimilarWeb ran these queries using OpenAI's API, so they could get through thousands and thousands. Then they looked at all the times a brand appeared for this percentage of answers, and we're able to create a scorecard. So what we're going to talk about, like I said, is car insurance, but we've actually done this for a number of different types of brands and different types of sectors, and there's a little bit of data in there later on about credit cards as well. Okay, so what do they find? So some of this is as you'd expect, right? So the insurer visibility card, if you look at some of the percentage of recommendations, and that is when you said, where should I get my car insurance, or what car insurance should I get in London, or whatever it might be, the percentage of times these brands were mentioned is what was scored over thousands and thousands of results. And what they found was some of the ones you'd expect, Admiral, who are a client of ours, up there, Aviva, but also AXA, who may be a little bit less present as a brand, so that was quite interesting. But then big brands, Churchill, very low, Direct Line, as you'd expect, quite big. And if you're from the insurance space, it's going to be very interesting what happens when Direct Line and Aviva come together. But then eShore, tiny exposure. Hastings Direct, big car insurance share, but actually very small in terms of percentage of recommendations, because they don't really do marketing in the same way. And then, of course, LV, another brand that's disappearing. So this scorecard is probably going to look very different in a year's time. But that was very interesting. What was I found, and this is what triggered the whole bit of research in the first place, is what you found the price comparison websites almost flipped on their head. Confused in terms of rankings is often behind, particularly your Go Compare and Money Saving Expert. It tends to trade blows with Go Compare. But what we found was Confused was actually getting a much higher percentage of recommendations than the rest. And actually Compare the Market, which is dominated search for years and years since I was working in price comparison, it was dominating it. They were only getting 5% of recommendations. So, and only 26% of all results cited a price comparison website at all, which again, they dominate search. I suppose it makes sense. You're not asking it to where to shop around for car insurance. You're asking it where to get car insurance. It's almost skipping over this step. What does that do to the results? And I blurred it out because it didn't really matter. It's not about naming and shaming. It's about showing how the top results were actually getting, so your top number one result, only 5% of exposure. This number two result in Google, 0% of references, which is crazy. Then 3, 4, 5, and 6 kind of big chunks of recommendations. They as you can probably assume, is direct insurers, and then it drops off again. The homepage is very, very different. So you've got 25% drop coming in traditional search, and only an average of 2.5 AI mentions are in the top 2 brands of Google. That's a big gap, but it's also a big opportunity. Just going to skip ahead and go back. There's another one. This is a brand new research. This is now similar web did with someone else, but it's looking at credit cards in America. And you've got the top 5 results for credit cards in America were in organic clicks. So top amount of traffic by organic clicks. So you had Chase, Reddit, Reddit's everywhere, Capital One, Citibank, Community, right? These are all the American brands. But when you went into Chat GPT, ironically, Google was being referenced a lot. PayPal was referenced a lot. American Express, Visa, and again, Chase again. So it's quite, again, a different result. And what they found and what we've been seeing is that where there is a bigger disparity between the search results, traditional search results, and the AI results, that's where there's the biggest opportunity to change the status quo. Some brands, I think if you go to look at trainers or sports equipment and things like that, they actually are very, very, very close. I don't know why that is, but they're very close, probably because they're more marketing machines in retail than you get in maybe financial services. It's normally disproportionate in financial services. So as a result, there's less opportunity there. Just keep doing what you're doing kind of thing. Whereas in financial services, there's a big disparity, and that is where the opportunities lie. And also the risk for the bigger brands. So why is this important? We're seeing a downward trend potentially in traditional search. And we had other charts that showed that traditional search for car insurance is dropping. We know that Gen AI is taking share of the customer journey, small but growing. There's a shift to new winners. Okay, change the status quo for the first time in years. Again, not just in car insurance, but in lots of areas. So you need to know how you're going to influence this engine. And no matter what research there is, over and above, everyone who's looking into this in great detail, and it's still a moving feast, right? We're still learning, is that digital PR is the biggest ticket to making an impact on this. And on that note, I'll hand over to Emma.
Thanks. So I did mention on a previous slide that referral traffic is one of the main KPIs, but it's quite often a secondary metric. The backlinks that we generate is an indicator of, how good the website actually is to Google and the website's authority, which, everyone wants to rank first on Google. So that's typically the core KPI. So yeah, backlinks are not just direct digital pathways of point scoring, they're strong indicators of your website's authority to search engines. But yeah, when we talk about the importance of backlinks, let's start with types of links. Not all links have the same value, and brands will need a mix of sort of B2B, B2C, business blogs, as Alex mentioned, like getting into the likes of American Express and things like that, really beneficial, but we'll talk more about types of links in a short bit. Getting links to key pages is really good for sort of SEO benefits. Just helps with specific pages growing. So rather than, getting your brand mentions and your backlinks to the homepage, for example, just making sure you're aiming for parts of the website that you actually want to rank for, whether this is ISAs, fixed rate bonds, mortgages, just, targeting those key pages. And getting those brand mentions and coverage is more important than ever. The brand mentions and the coverage is actually what tells AI what to talk about and who to talk about. So having really good quality content that, that'll be what gets you in those AI features and the AI snippets. And then, getting into best buy guides as well. So, as we mentioned just now, if people are searching best car insurance, best home insurance, etc., getting into those best buy guides is what's going to help you not only with revenue, but, getting into those AI snippets is obviously going to be driving those people to the website and to make that purchase. But I know it's all easy to say and do, and just send you guys away and just say, go and get some backlinks and brand mentions. But obviously, if it was that easy, then, everyone would be doing it. So I guess it's how do you actually go ahead and get those brand mentions and get those backlinks. So the first one is quite an obvious one, but put something out that journalists will care about. So we'll talk about different tools that you can utilize shortly, but there are tools that you can use to find, exactly what sites are talking about and what journalists are talking about that, that you need to sort of jump on and sort of get behind. Gathering contact information through media databases. So I'm a really big fan of Muckrack, but there's loads out there. It will set you back a couple of grand, but it does make everything a lot more efficient. So you can utilize these media databases to, to get journalist information, whether that's, to see what they previously talked about, whether it's to find their email addresses, phone numbers, etc. And then we go on to sort of jump on industry news and trends early. The early is in capital letters because this is really crucial. But yeah, just ensuring that you're monitoring news around the topic daily is crucial for you to jump on any sort of news worthy trends. For example, if a story breaks out around home insurance and how it's gone up, X% in a year, it's crucial to be first there so you can actually fire experts out to journalists and sort of get ahead of the game and to beat your competitors in that space. I'm a really big fan of data, and I think data is becoming increasingly important for journalists. Gives a reason for journalists to cover your story right this instant, rather than just kind of saving it until a slow news day. So you can use free data sources such as search data, which I'm a really big fan of, just showing something that, searches have gone up X amount in the past month or the last quarter. This is why you should be talking about this topic right now. They want the views, they want the article views just as much as you want the story covered. So giving them that sort of incentive to cover the story, I think is really crucial. But yeah, there are other different types of data you can get to depending on sort of the industry. Land registry is a huge one, obviously property data. Google Trends is a really nice one, freedom of information, things like that. And then, yeah, I'm a really big fan of offering exclusives to publications. So you might have remembered from one of the first slides that I showed you guys, just talking about going after links that you want, links that you need, rather than just sending something out en masse. But yeah, I really like to utilize this tactic. It might limit, obviously, how many sites you're talking to. But it'll ensure you're going after the right places who will feature the right content, who will help you obviously get those brand mentions and get those sort of features in AI snippets. So yeah, you might limit on the quantity of coverage, but it'll certainly increase the quality of coverage that you do get. But yeah, the sort of landscape has changed over the past few years. It's becoming a lot harder to get brand mentions and increasingly harder to get backlinks. So yeah, you may have seen in the past few years, the likes of Reach PLC and NewsQuest have made several hundreds of redundancies over the past few years. But yeah, what does that, I hate to spin it onto us, but what does that mean for us? Websites used to obviously have, motoring journalists, insurance journalists, travel journalists, etc. A lot of topical journalists, but what this has now done, it's basically just made everyone generic journalists. So this means that, people that were specifically going to motoring journalists now have to go to standard journalists, and it just means that they're getting, hundreds more pictures a day because everyone's flocking to the same people. And I don't know if anyone's seen my LinkedIn post. It was featured in PR Week fairly recently, but we need to sort of get in links because that's where the money is. But yeah, in terms of just sending something out for the link is pretty much a no-go with Reach PLC these days, and I'm sure more sites are going to start utilizing this too. And then we look at the traditional shift to digital as well. So many agencies have also started offering digital as sort of like a side job alongside traditional PR. So it just means that the market's getting a bit more oversaturated. You really need to make your stories stand out. And there's a lot more pictures landing in journalist inboxes that there was once, a couple of years ago. Everyone's kind of jumping onto the same ship. But yeah, obviously I keep mentioning brand mentions and backlinks. Brand mentions are obviously still really key for the AI snippets and AI search results. So while we do love a backlink, they aren't the be all and end all. So yeah, I talked earlier about softwares that we could utilize to find sort of the key places to go and the key journalists to talk to. So there's two examples here on the right. It looks like one, but yeah, they're actually two separate examples. I probably should have split it out a little bit better. But yeah, the first example on the right, so that's the first 5 points, shows what comes up if I search on BuzzSumo, which is a personal favorite of mine. What happens when I search car insurance prices? So this is brought up sites that you probably would expect it to bring up: FT, Express, Falmouth Packet. Example B, so the bottom two there, they show the examples for best car insurance. So you can see exactly what sites are getting picked up and what types of content, what types of websites are producing these types of content. So this will allow you to be a lot more targeted when it comes to outreaching. So exactly, you can speak to the Falmouth Packet. You really, you want to get into which. Who's obviously listed there. I don't know how clear it is on your screen, but yeah, you can get, getting into which for, best car insurance is really key, because which is one of the key sort of websites that does come up for Chat GPT etc.
Okay, so very quickly, and I'll refer back. So first of all, one slide I skipped over early on, I'm just going to quickly slip back because it's relevant to what Emma just said, is the other thing we measured when we did that research was the citation frequency. So which sites are being cited. And so that's really important because, of course, when you're talking about content that you want to place and where you want to put your stuff, the sites that are getting cited the most, it's a complicated thing to say, are the ones that you want to appear in. Yeah, so it's not about, and you'll see loads of people, you can buy, people offer you this many links and buying links. And so it's always been a bad idea buying links, but it's going to be less effective than ever. So be very careful of that now. Not only will you potentially get smashed by Google, but also the AI is potentially not going to even reference you. So these are some of the sites that at the moment are cited frequently, but that will change, of course, over time. It's constantly learning. What we did notice here is actually confused. Again, was being referenced as well as uswitch. So that was quite an interesting one. So going back, sorry to do that, I missed it earlier. How do you know if this stuff is working? How do you know if your site's being cited? How do you know if you're getting traffic from it? Well, it's already appearing in a lot of your GA. So a lot of your GA results. This is actually a slightly older screenshot now. So the numbers are small. It's a lot bigger now, the numbers, even since we took the screenshot a few months ago. So set up Google Analytics to monitor your AI platform visits. You can review server logs for crawlers from OpenAI and Bard and the others, but also track how many quality mentions are being said by you. Get a scorecard. If you don't, your agency doesn't provide a scorecard, you need one. It's going to be one of those KPIs that you mentioned because it is becoming more important, particularly if you're trying to break ground. And then if you're speaking to your business, you're going, look, we need to start taking this stuff seriously rather than just using it to talk like a pirate or some rubbish like that. AI is going to be a critical thing. Brand mentions through digital PR, which is what we were talking about here, increases your AI search visibility, which then increases as a signal for your brand authority, which then leads to qualified traffic, which then leads to lead conversion. So this is real money on the table here. Being mentioned or cited by Chat GPT, Perplexity, or Google isn't going to close the sale for you, but it's going to give you a massive advantage over those who aren't there. And we might complain about people appearing in snippets and then not getting the click, but isn't it better that you're the brand that appears in the snippets of the AI overview than being the brand that doesn't? And I think that's the critical thing here. A little bit more on being mentioned.
Cool. We'll talk about we'll quickly skim over the types of links finance brands need. So the first one is B2B and B2C. I think a lot of finance brands think just to go for the B2B, but we've done a lot of work. Well, you can see here on the right, something we've done recently for one of our clients, stylist, who you might not necessarily think of getting into for your brand. Really big publication, really great sort of signal to Google, really great signal to AI. And I've talked already about sort of quantity versus quality, but quality is always the key player. So rather than send something out en masse, go for those links that you actually really need. Relevant sites. So Google will sort of, make sure that you are actually aiming for relevant sites. It's pointless sort of getting a home insurance brand in a motoring website, but it would be really great if a car brand got into a motoring website. Business blogs, so just making sure you're actually getting into business blogs such as American Express, PayPal, etc., who are talking about sort of different things there. And then obviously Best Buy guides as well. As a lot of people are turning to AI to search for terms such as the best ices in the UK. These listicles are what AI is going to utilize to actually get your brand in AI. And I'll quickly just brush over a few sort of strategies to sort of help you out. Utilizing your internal experts to comment on trending topics. You should already be doing this already, but if you're not, still time to sort of go for it. And then reacting to the news. So just making sure you are looking at the news industry trends daily, just to ensure that you're at the forefront of any breaking stories. You can put up blogs around what's kind of going on the website, pitch any sort of experts, etc. And then campaigns as well, just making sure you are utilizing data to get out sort of big chunks of stories and big chunks of news and content for the website. Won't talk to you guys too much about profile pensions, but to give you sort of a brief, we just took on some work for them, had near 90 bits of coverage over a couple of months, and that increased the organic sessions there by 183%. So this is just a little screenshot of where the coverage was coming from. And obviously you can see there a nice mix of sites, really relevant ones, Red Tops, B2B, etc.
And I think that when you see all of those sites, I think it was Rand Fishkin called Chat GPT or generative AI almost spicy autocorrect. Okay, the more mentions of your brand across the web and in the more disparate places, but in more authoritative places, just like before, but it's not just about links anymore. It's as much about brand mentions as was about links. That's how it's knowing what brands to suggest to certain queries. So yeah, spicy autocorrect is what he was calling it. So what does good look like in AI search? And we're just going to wrap up now because it's at the end of the half hour. But these are just a couple of brands that we work with. We work with many, but we're starting to see, before we started researching it actively, and now we're proactively doing this, working on this stuff for our clients. But you can see one of our clients, Allianz here, appearing not only just in its search results, but up in the AI overview. So just on the top of Google, you almost got double bubble now, which is great, right? But equally, you've got results that might be like position 30 in traditional search rankings, but are coming up at the top of in AI overviews for more complex queries. That's excellent. We also monitor Chat GPT, Perplexity for results as well. So another client of ours, Aldermore Bank, we're seeing a lot of references to their research, their personal research as well, that might not have appeared in a traditional ranking. So it's big opportunities for brands like that who are giving really quality, good content and getting a lot of exposure to their brand. And the previous example, another client, Hodge, some fantastic coverage they've had recently. It's inevitable that without work is probably going to end up in ChatGPT results soon. And I've already covered that just then. So what next? As we wrap up, and we're 1 minute over, so apologies for that. Audit your brand's current AI search presence and identify any gaps. Look at, just as before, target high authority trusted media. Again, a lot of what we do that's great for SEO is still really good for AIO, EIO, whatever, right? But it's still really important. But there's a bit of a skew towards digital PR, maybe, no offense, Emma, being more important than it was before. It was always important, but it's really become top priority now. So it's really important that it's focused on. Optimize your PR and website. There's a whole thing here. We can talk about tech SEO, but the way you structure the content, the way you structure your content site, make it easy for the AI to basically process it and spit it back to the consumer for results. But of course, we're still financial services, right? To make sure this content out there is FCA compliant, because we don't really know where the legality is going to go with this, with results that are pulled up that might be deemed as advice in Chat GPT or whatever, but it's come from your site. So make sure that everything you've got, at least you can go look on the page. We've got all of the legal things to protect us here. And then, of course, track this over time. It's only going to grow. It's only going to be important. And lean into any opportunities that you receive where the status quo that you've always battled against is getting flipped around. Now, I said any questions, but I'm conscious that we've got to the end of time. So we'll just have a quick chat and check if there's any questions. But if not, we'll let you get on with your day. Thank you. Any coming through? Got a minute? Oh, thank you, everyone. If one thing, if you're still on the call and you want the deck, we'd prefer not to send the Gmail addresses just because the whole data protection thing. Thank you, everyone, for the thumbs up. I forgot I could do that. So if you would like a copy of the deck, we will be sending out to those that are signed up through company addresses, because we know it's B2B. But if you are B2C, please get in touch. Just message us or message me on LinkedIn if you haven't got a copy, and we'll get it across to you. But apart from that, I think we can assume there's no questions. Great. All right, we'll leave it at that. Thank you. Hold on. Yeah, we've got some things.
Anything that you recommend for easy link building before starting digital PR? I wish it was all easy. But yeah, I think the best thing to do is to look at actually who is writing your content, who's actually writing content that is good for you. So rather than just, go to the independent and have a look at car insurance, for example, who's actually writing about car insurance, and just look at the insights that you could offer them. So rather than, create a story sort of separate to anything that's kind of going on, just try and tailor it to as much as you can to that specific person, and also to what's kind of going on in the world right now. So know your space and know exactly who to go to, I think.
Okay, should we call it a day? Thank you for the question. And my email address is in the chat there. So hopefully you'll be able to email me if you just need a copy of the deck. Otherwise, those who've signed up with companies, I see him going to the question, how do you optimize our content for AI before off page? I think that's what we talked about previously, and I can send some more information on that. It's really about structuring the content that's easy to use. It was like we used to do like we still do for content now. It's got to be nicely structured for a human to read it. It's exactly the same. Nicely spaced out, good bullet points of key points. Very clear content. I mean, keep your EAT in mind. Yeah, EEAT. That's going to be just as important here.